What just happened at Riviera Country Club might be the single most explosive moment the PGA Tour has seen in years, and we are not even talking about the golf anymore. We are talking about something far bigger, far darker, and far more dangerous for the integrity of this entire sport. A young man stood on the 18th green at the Genesis Invitational, made a 3-foot putt, and the world erupted in celebration because it looked like the purest kind of storybook ending you could ever witness in professional golf. But right now, behind closed doors, something is brewing that could rip that storybook straight in half. The whispers have already started turning into something official, and if what is being reported is accurate, the PGA Tour is about to face one of the most uncomfortable investigations it has ever been forced to run. This is not just about one tournament anymore. This is about the soul of professional golf itself. Welcome back to PGA Updates Hub, the channel where real golf fans come for real golf talk. No sugarcoating, no corporate nonsense, just honest analysis from people who actually bleed this sport every single Sunday. If you are new here, this is exactly the kind of content we bring you every single week. The stories that actually matter, the angles no one else is brave enough to cover. We are a growing community here at PGA Updates Hub, and if you have not already hit that subscribe button, do it right now, because this season is only getting wilder from here, and you do not want to miss a single second of what is coming. Hit the like button too, because it genuinely helps us keep bringing you this kind of deep coverage. Now let us get into it, because this story is absolutely massive. Let us first give Jacob Bridgeman the credit he absolutely deserves before we dive into the controversy, because what he did at Riviera Country Club over 4 rounds was genuinely remarkable by any standard in professional golf. This kid came into Sunday with a 6-shot lead at one of the most demanding and iconic courses on the entire PGA Tour schedule, a lead that most experienced players would still manage to blow under the pressure of a final round at Riviera, and for a while, it looked like Bridgeman was going to cruise to an easy, comfortable, dominant victory that the world would remember for decades. He stretched that lead to 7 shots with 12 holes still to play. 7 shots clear at Riviera against one of the deepest fields of the entire season. And at that point, it felt like the tournament was already over before it had even begun to get interesting. Then the chaos started. Adam Scott went out and fired a vintage 63. The kind of round that reminds everyone why he is still one of the most dangerous players alive on any given Sunday. Kurt Kitayama posted a 64 and suddenly crept right back into the conversation. And then came Rory McIlroy, grinding out a 67 with birdies on the final 2 holes, doing what only Rory McIlroy can do with that suffocating late Sunday pressure that is broken. So many younger players before they ever got started. That 7-shot cushion evaporated shot by shot, hole by hole, until Bridgman was standing over a 3-footer for par on the 72nd hole with the entire tournament, his entire career, and $4 million resting on one single putt. He made it, 1 shot, his first ever PGA Tour title at Riviera, in front of Tiger Woods, who was hosting the event. History, pure history, and the crowd absolutely lost their minds. But here is where everything changes, and here is where PGA Updates Hub needs to bring you the full truth of what is actually happening right now beneath the surface of that celebration. According to golf journalist Dan Rappaport, citing sources directly connected to Rory McIlroy's team, Rory reportedly told people close to him that he personally witnessed multiple rule violations by Jacob Bridgeman across the 4 rounds at Riviera. And this is not casual locker room frustration being vented between friends. This is something far more serious. The report says that McIlroy fully intends to formally present his concerns to the PGA Tour for an official review and investigation. And when Rory McIlroy, one of the most respected and decorated players in the history of this sport, decides to go that route, the Tour has absolutely no choice but to take it seriously and investigate every single frame of footage they have. Let that sink in for a second. We just watched a young man win his first tour title in front of the entire world, on one of the most prestigious stages in all of professional golf, and the player who finished just 1 shot behind him is now reportedly preparing to file a formal complaint suggesting the result may not have been clean. This is not random social media noise from anonymous accounts. This is Rory McIlroy. This is the biggest name in golf right now raising his hand and saying something is not right. And that changes absolutely everything about how we look at what happened at Riviera this week. The allegations that are circulating focus on two very specific situations that allegedly took place during the back nine in rounds 2 and 3 of the tournament, and both of them carry serious consequences if the PGA Tour investigation confirms that violations actually occurred. The first allegation involves Bridgeman allegedly pressing his club into the turf near his ball with what sources describe as excessive and deliberate force on multiple occasions before making his stroke, which falls directly under Rule 8.1 of the official rules of golf. That rule is crystal clear and has absolutely no gray area in it. You cannot deliberately improve any conditions that affect your shot, whether that is your lie, your stance, your line of play, or your swing area. If the PGA Tour reviews the footage and establishes that intent was present, that is a 2-stroke penalty per breach in stroke play, 2 strokes. And Jacob Bridgeman won this tournament by exactly 1 stroke. The second allegation is about a relief drop that allegedly took place outside the defined relief area during round 3, and we are talking about what sources describe as potentially millimeter-level deviations from the legal drop zone. Now some people will hear that and immediately say, that sounds absurd. But here is the thing about professional golf at this level. Millimeters are everything. A slightly better lie can mean the difference between a clean strike and a flyer that costs you a shot, and the relief procedures in professional golf exist for a very specific reason. Even minimal deviation, if it is established as intentional, can and does result in penalties that are applied retroactively, regardless of when the round was completed. Modern technology means every single movement on a PGA Tour course is captured, and the Tour has access to broadcast footage, high-definition camera angles at every angle imaginable, and shot-link data that tracks everything down to the inch. Here is why this story is so much bigger than just one tournament result, and why every serious golf fan needs to be paying close attention to what happens over the coming days and weeks. If the PGA Tour reviews the evidence and determines that violations occurred and retroactive penalties need to be applied, the entire leaderboard at the Genesis Invitational changes. Bridgeman's win disappears. The FedEx Cup points get redistributed. The prize money allocation shifts. And perhaps most painfully of all, a young man who genuinely believed he had achieved the greatest moment of his entire life would have that moment taken away from him in the most devastating and public way imaginable. That is not a small thing. That is a life-altering consequence that will follow Jacob Bridgeman no matter what happens for the rest of his career. But the implications stretch even further than that. This situation raises enormous questions about how the PGA Tour handles ultra-close video scrutiny in the modern era of professional sports where everything is on camera and nothing goes unnoticed. It raises questions about the locker room dynamic between players when one of the biggest stars in the game files a formal complaint against a first-time winner. It raises questions about what fairness actually looks like when the difference between a legal action and an illegal one is measured in millimeters and captured only on a broadcast camera from 50 yards away. And it raises questions about what the Tour's responsibility is to both the accuser and the accused while an investigation is ongoing and the entire golf world is watching and waiting for answers. Here at PGA Updates Hub, we believe in giving you both sides of every story without pretending that this is simple, because it is not simple at all. Golf is a sport that is built on integrity, on self-policing, on calling penalties on yourself even when no one is watching and even when it costs you everything. That is the foundation of what makes this sport different from every other sport on the planet. When Rory McIlroy raises concerns, you cannot ignore them simply because the optics of investigating a first-time winner are uncomfortable. At the same time, Jacob Bridgeman has not been found guilty of anything. He is a young man who made a 3-footer to win the biggest tournament of his life, and he deserves to have this process handled with fairness and with speed so that the shadow over his victory is resolved one way or the other before it defines his entire career. Either this investigation clears him completely, and his win becomes an even more powerful story of a champion who survived pressure and controversy, or it reveals something that the PGA Tour is obligated to address honestly and transparently regardless of how painful that process turns out to be. The coming days are going to be absolutely critical, and PGA Updates Hub will be right here covering every single development the moment it breaks, giving you the honest, unfiltered analysis that you deserve as a real fan of this sport. If you have thoughts on this, if you believe Bridgeman is being treated unfairly, or if you think Rory is completely right to push for a formal review, drop your opinion in the comments right now, because this is exactly the kind of conversation that makes this community worth being part of. And if you are not already subscribed to PGA Updates Hub, what are you waiting for? This is the channel that brings you the real stories, the real stakes, and the real truth about professional golf every single week. Subscribe, hit the bell, and we will see you in the next one.